Naval, I have particularly invited you for my chat show because you have built a business, and I was one of the fortunate members in your team in my early 20s who learned so much from you. You built a business by creating a winning team, which ultimately sold at 40 times at less than 8 years. And this entire conversation, Naval, is for entrepreneurs to understand that for wealth creation of the company, it's very, very important to invest in the team. And we saw that throughout our journey with you as the CEO and the leader of our company on how you kept on and on investing in the team. And even when the company created wealth, at the end, you ensured that every team member also created wealth. And this is the journey I wanted to talk about for the benefit of founders and entrepreneurs. And the first question that I wanted to ask you, Naval, is you very clearly defined and created a value system and a culture for the team right from the beginning. What was that culture that you intentionally created, and how did you create that culture?
Okay. So, yeah, thank you, Koma. Thank you for inviting me uh, to share my views with you and whoever else ends up listening to this podcast. Uh, I think I enjoyed building Standard Chartered Mutual Fund and IDFC Mutual Fund as much as all of you all did. And I thoroughly enjoyed working with people. I wasn't a people's person. So for the previous 10 years of my life, I used to be an investment banker, which is as far away as a people's person as you can get because you're really not managing large teams and the whole culture there is vastly different. When I was asked to set up the mutual fund business by Grindlays, uh, it was a young industry. The total asset size of the entire industry was 80,000 crores. And now, when you look back, a business that we started is twice nearly 1.5 times the size of what the industry was, when we started it. And the largest firm in this business is nearly 4 times what the industry was. So it was a very young business industry, and we were one of the earliest people to get into that industry. When I looked at that industry, I saw three parts of a mutual fund business. The core, the engine of the business was clearly the investment managers, the investment team that analyzed the investment opportunities, designed the funds, and ran the money that the funds had. And their job was to outperform their peers uh, with relevant levels of risk in the portfolio and to be able to manage portfolios irrespective of market conditions. Then you had a team of salespeople and marketing people whose job was to convince distributors, because at that point in time there was no direct consumer sales. Whether it was large corporate institutions or individual retail investors, you didn't talk to investors directly, but you were going talking through distributors to try to convince them that you were a better fund house than other fund houses to bring the money in. And the third element of the team was the operations, compliance, and the customer service team, whose job was when the money came in to produce the net asset values, to do the fund accounting, when the fund managers transacted on a security to settle that security. Customers had a query to answer to that query. SEBI is a very, very tough regulator. And the reason that the mutual fund industry in India has had many fewer mishaps than what exists, overseas. And if you think that Indian mutual funds, given the recent saga that's happened, are riskier, that's not true, because SEBI regulates to a very, very fine degree, and the regulations are far more encompassing than foreign regulators. And to stay on top of that, to ensure that you don't breach any guidelines, you have a compliance department. And the compliance department's job is not only to look after SEBI requirements, but also you as a business want to run your business with a certain code of ethics. You want to be true to label. You want to do exactly what you said. So the job of the compliance department is to ensure that the business operates on the principles that you have laid out, which could be, far wider than just the regulations that are required to safeguard investors. So I realized that there are two aspects of this business. One, this business required no capital. It required no assets. The only thing that would make it successful were people. You needed great quality fund managers, You needed great quality salespeople, and you needed great quality operations, because the business had no other. Its largest cost base was salary costs. Everything else was a much smaller cost. So it's not a asset heavy business like a steel company or a cement company, which has large amounts of assets. It's not like that. It's not an FMCG company that's trying to create a brand and spends inordinate amount of money on brand building through TV ads, etc. It doesn't. We don't do all that. And the second aspect was that these three entities within the business had to work exceedingly closely with each other. You couldn't have them operating in divisions. If you did, the people wouldn't hum. They wouldn't talk and walk and operate as one voice with one objective, with one mission. You would have silos building up in an organization. So it was a people intensive business. It was very people determined for success, and you needed the three aspects of the business to work very seamlessly. So to start, so you had to have a very friendly culture in the organization. But you were at the other end, you were also at a very young industry. The industry was growing very rapidly. So you did not want to have absolute control on the people. And we followed a phrase which is called controlled chaos. We wanted there to be controlled chaos in the organization. We wanted people to be innovative. We wanted people to follow their ideas. So if the ideas did not succeed, we wanted them to rethink the idea and come up with a better idea. We wanted good ideas that succeeded to be shared across the team. We didn't want a Calcutta salesperson to be competing with a Bombay salesperson. There was no logic for that. We actually wanted, if Calcutta did something, which was very successful, we wanted the entire country to pick that up and run with it. We wanted a culture that promoted that level of cooperation and coordination within the team. Because the market was changing rapidly, we were at a very young industry and it was growing fast. You wanted your frontline people to be thinking for you. You did not want a top-down culture to a large extent, but you wanted them to understand the brand and the ethics philosophy that you had, so that they worked within those parameters. So these were your requirements. So we did this one through the way we inducted people when they joined us. Second is, for nearly 4 years of our life, or nearly more than that, I would say nearly 5 to 6 years of our life, we had quarterly offsites, which is unheard of in a business, because we were a very small team and I could afford it. It didn't, when you look back and you say that, yeah, it was not I remember when we hit the first 500 crores of AUM and we cut that cake, the entire company had 13 employees. So the cost to get 13 employees together and then 30 employees together, and by the time we sold the business from Standard Chartered to IDFC, there were 60 employees in the business. So to get them together frequently was not expensive. And given that these were the people who were going to make a big difference in whether you succeeded or not, you needed them to work efficiently with each other. So the offsites were designed to create very high levels of friendliness, high levels of team working, team sharing. We used to have activities where we used to tell all the salespeople, go into a huddle and come back with three things that you need from the investment team, and come back with three things that you need from the ops team. If they deliver that to you, it would make you far more successful in the marketplace. We should tell the investments team to do the same for sales and operations, and the operations team. And then they would come and talk it through, and they would explain why they wanted what they were asking for. And there would be a debate on it. And you would say, okay, and you couldn't come up with a Dhobi list of 20 items. You came up with a list of only 3 items, right? And based on that, if at the debate it was found that yes, those 3 things could be actioned by the other part of the business, and they understood why you wanted it, they were sensitized to why you were asking for it and why you would be successful, they suddenly, they said, yes, we can do this. So and thereafter, the next quarterly meeting, we reviewed what happened. Was it successful? Do we need to make changes? Have we done something that we shouldn't be doing, etc.? Now, to get people to work seamlessly, you also needed a little bit of a socialist culture, not a complete socialist culture. So bonuses needed to be not as pyramidical as they exist in other mutual funds. So while the investments team got much larger bonuses than others, but it wasn't disproportionate as other fund houses, right? So our ops and customer service teams compared to other fund houses actually earn much higher levels of revenue, and so did our salespeople. So that sort of made everybody feel engaged. It was not that the ops guy saying, I'm doing all the hard, heavy lifting, and the investments and the salespeople are walking away with the large, checks, remuneration checks. So you didn't want that feeling uh, to emerge. Uh, so there were a lot of, the whole reason for running a business and building a culture, which is why, whenever we did a Gallup survey within the Standard Chartered Bank network, the mutual fund business would always rank by far number one in the Gallup survey. And especially on, items like, do you have a best friend in office at the workplace? We would be far better than anybody else, because a lot of people working in the mutual fund, in our mutual fund business, had their best friends working along with them, and a lot of them, even though they parted in 2008, it's 13 years back, they still keep in touch with each other very often, and they know what's happening in each other's families, etc. So there was a logic and a reason to drive that behavior. Also, because mutual fund was not an intrinsic part of the Standard Chartered business, and we were the only mutual fund that they had. We weren't very heavily capitalized, or we weren't very, we didn't have the same level of expenditure to grow the business. So we were very focused. So that was another thing that we needed to drill down to people, that yes, you are important. We'll put a large part of our cost base to you, to make sure that you get the benefits of the effort that you're putting in, but be very focused. And we used to always say, uh, do you is it something that is necessary to do, or is it something good to have? So when you came up with the three ideas and you wanted to do that, we would rate it saying, is it necessary for our success, or is it good to have? If it was good to have, it would not get the same level of importance as things that were necessary to do to be truly successful. And we sort of debated as to what things were required, so we were able to also effectively utilize the spending power that we had on things that were necessary. And what that also does is, when the entire organization is just working on three ideas, they really pull those three ideas off. But if you give them like 15 ideas to work, simultaneously, none of them will truly be successful. So it's very important to maintain that focus, and that also then limits how you spend your money and how you plan your ideas. People are far more focused. Objectives are much sharper of people. Everybody knows exactly what you have to do, and there's no confusion around it. So there were a lot of things. These are some of the ideas that we did to build, and it was necessary for the business at that point of time. It was what was required, and it ended up building possibly a very, very lovely working environment. In fact, it was at least my best part of my working career, subsequent and prior to that. And I think a lot of people who have worked in Standard Chartered Mutual Fund have also said the same thing. It was a short 8-year period, but its impact in a 35, 40-year career that most people have, that 8-year period really stands out for nearly a lot of people who worked there, and they still have a lot of memories from that period. So I guess that's good, but that was what the business required.